And joining us now, she's back on the show here, of course, had a great career at Baylor, was part of the Baylor 2011 Women's College World Series appearance. Of course, you know her now as the analyst on SEC Network Plus. Over there doing the Arkansas game. She'll be part of the coverage this weekend when Alabama and Arkansas play. She'll be calling the Friday and Sunday game as the color commentator. I speak of our good friend, Dr. Megan Turk, back with us here at In the Circle. It's been too long. How you doing?
I'm good, Eric. I'm happy to be back. It's been almost, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years now.
Yeah, the world's changed.
The last time I was on, it was right after the D3 National Championships, right before that 2019 World Series, wasn't it?
Yes, wow. You got a good memory. That's very good. Like now, I feel guilty. Like, clearly you wanted to be back on sooner, right? But you've been busy, so we've tried to leave you alone. Plus, the world has changed over the last year, so that's got occupied a lot of things. But it's great to have you back, and let's just talk about obviously the big story here, and that's Arkansas. What a year for Coach Deifel and company, inside the top 10 now in all the major polls, on top of the SEC, and undefeated. I guess as somebody who we've seen him up close in person, what's been the difference with this team this year as opposed to the last couple of years where they were good, especially the year where they hosted the regional a couple of years back, but they weren't this good, dominant? What's been the difference?
The confidence level, and I know any interview that Courtney does and people ask about her, the team this year, and she says they're just confident, and they're confident in everything that they do. And their swings, if they swing and miss, they're confident in their swings and the miss. And they stick with that plan at the plate. Their power numbers are insane. I mean, how do you compare other than Oklahoma? But it's not just one person. It's not just a Braxton Burnside. It's Danielle Gibson. It's Lenny Malkin. It's Hannah Gamble, who, by the way, is finally back after about a month out. So offensively, this team is probably hands down the best offense 1 through 9 that I have seen this season so far. I haven't been able to watch a ton of Pac-12 games. And, I've gotten to watch a lot of the SEC, but with this squad and this lineup coming back in, there's one or two that are kind of question marks at the bottom of the lineup. But other than that, they can get on, they can hit home runs, they can hit doubles. And it's not just over the fence. Braxton Burnside has 5 doubles, and Gibson leads, SECers in the top 2 or 3 in the SEC in doubles. So there's just a lot more than just the long ball that's happening there. And that's just really cool to see after 5 years of calling games for them and seeing the progression from giving up 50 plus runs in a weekend to Auburn and scoring 1 to now they're 12-0 in the SEC, which has not happened in a really long time.
Yeah, and you mentioned Burnside. Obviously, everybody knows her by now. 376, 20 homers, 46 RBIs. Danielle Gibson, 397, 11 homers, 37 RBIs. What's clicked for both of them, especially Burnside, who every game, it seems like she's hitting home runs and obviously getting a lot of national attention?
So I love to look at the difference between the two of them. When you look at Braxton Burnside and Danielle Gibson's swings, they're completely different. Braxton Burnside swings with every ounce and every muscle and every fiber in her body. She will swing out of her shoes every time, and she's going to connect. And when she connects, it's gone. Or it's a super hard shot off of her bat. Danielle Gibson, on the other hand, she's got the knee injuries and she's really struggled with her lower body a little bit, but she stays on plane. She gets on plane and stays on plane through the ball way long. And that's why you see so many of her doubles and so many of her home runs. It's like a wrist flick almost through the swing, but she just stays on plane. But both of those, they're mature. Gibson had her year off, had to sit out in 2019, came back last year, was on a tear. Gibson is just a smart hitter. She attacks early in the count when she needs to. She doesn't swing really outside of her zone very much at all. And she struggled a little bit last weekend. She kind of, had a couple 0 for 4 days, but you're not going to keep her down very long. They moved her around in the lineup yesterday in the Missouri State game. Midweek, Tuesday. So whenever this comes out, it'll be on April 6th is when that game was. But, she has 2-3 hits and a few RBI and a home run under her belt. So this is not a team 1 through 9 that you can keep down for very long. they're not going to have multiple over 4 games over a long period of time. They make adjustments really quickly. And those two, Burnside, even, I don't know if you've listened to her podcast on HogPod or not, but she just talks about how she's playing a lot more freely this year. She's kind of relieved that pressure of herself, and she's businesslike as always, but she's also allowing herself to play as Braxton a little bit more instead of I've got to, be the best and do the best and do everything I can. And that change in mentality, that shift has actually allowed her to elevate her game even more.
I didn't know she had a podcast. Everybody's got a podcast. Have you been on her podcast yet?
No. It's the Hog Pod. They just had her on as a guest.
Okay. Yeah. Big time guest. Yeah, I understand. Booking.
Yeah.
It's a deal there. Hannah McEwen, 360, 3 homers and 11 RBIs, and yet I feel like the best is still to come. Is that accurate?
She's overlooked. Her entire career, she's been overlooked. I mean, she's been in the conversation, but she's not going to put up those power home run numbers like your Gibsons and your Burnsides and your Malkins. But she will forever be the consistent one at the top of the lineup. She's not your typical leadoff, and she hasn't been her whole career. She's a doubles hitter. She's a singles hitter. She's an energy builder. One of the best sets of eyes in the college game, knows her strike zone down to what Courtney Deifel said, a millimeter. And I know it makes Courtney nervous over at third base, and she's not swinging at balls that are, an inch off the plate, but Hannah knows what her game plan is, and she sticks with it. And you're absolutely right. She's kind of struggled in the SEC. She's sub 300 in the SEC, I think, when I was looking at her stats the other day. But that's not who she is. She is a 350 career, even more, 375, I think, career hitter. And she's always going to be. That's just the way that she is. She knows who she is. She doesn't try to play outside of that and doesn't try to get into super home run hitting mentality. She is just a barrel control. I'm going to take it the opposite way. When you throw me inside, yeah, I'll swing at it occasionally, but if you give me a good pitch, it's at least going into the grass.
Yeah, and it's been really clicking on all cylinders there offensively. Who have been some of the surprises for you offensively that maybe people don't know about, or some of the new faces or players that really have taken it to a different level?
The first one that comes to mind is Hannah Gamble as a freshman. So a lot of people didn't know about her, and she went down and she was, behind Burnside and Gibson and hitting in that 3, 4, or 5 spot as a freshman and killing it offensively. And then she went down in the UCA game back on March 9th, had a hand injury, and yesterday was her first day back, and she goes 3 for 3 with a home run and 2 RBIs. And she's also defensively their best third baseman. So that's been kind of a question mark over the last few weeks defensively of who's going to be in that hot corner. And there's been a few errors over there, and what does that look like? And so having her back is going to be really good for Arkansas. The second one, and somebody who does not get the credit that she deserves by any means, is Sam Torres. And Sam, when Hannah McEwen was out for COVID protocol, when Hannah Gamble was out for an injury, and some people were kind of struggling, Sam sat at the top of the lineup in that leadoff spot, and she's hitting 459 in the SEC. I mean, she gets on, she does her job. She's probably really the only speed that Arkansas has between the bases, unless you're bringing in pinch runners. And she's been so much fun to watch. She's just been a mainstay. And they're kind of shifting her around from now McEwen's back, and McEwen's at that front spot. And they've kind of played around with her being either a 1 or a 2 or a 9 spot in the lineup. So those two, Hannah Gamble and Sam Torres, are definitely my ones to circle.
Speaking of the circle, let's go to the pitching. Of course, Mary Half. So many questions about her going into the season. Everybody knows about the injury she's had. And would she be back to what she was before? And boy, is she back ever again. She's been incredible and really has built this deep staff. People, obviously, Autumn Storms carried the load the last year or so. But you got Mary Half back. How big has that been? What have you seen from Mary that has clicked again for her? She seems healthy and better than ever.
Her demeanor in the circle she takes up more space in there physically. not in like a weight gain, anything like that, but takes up more space with her presence. And it's obvious that her confidence has grown. They've done a little bit of work. When we talked to Courtney at the beginning of the season, I kind of asked her about Mary and in the off season and what they really focused on. And it was way more technical. And they really got her pushing out off of the mound a little bit more. And we're working on her lower body. And with work on the lower body, it freed up that arm angle just a little bit more. So she has done an incredible job of mixing in that rise ball, mixing in that changeup. And I know you're trying to find her stats too, her little career stats and everything. But
Yeah.
this kid can freaking play. And she was somebody who was not recruited out of high school. I mean, Arkansas got very lucky, and Mary got very lucky that they found each other, and Courtney Deifel found her. And she has been probably one of the best under-recruited pitchers in the nation. And it's all been, the confidence growth, the coming off of that injury a couple years ago, late in the season in the NCAAs before they went to go play Oklahoma. But she has been so much fun to see her growth over her career too.
Is she better now than she was in 2018? Do you notice the differences there? And obviously you got her and you got Autumn Storms and you got Bloom, who's kind of been like their number 3 there. Really huge for the success here is this deeper staff than maybe you had back in 18, right?
I truly believe it's a deeper staff, not just with numbers, but with performance, because Mary Half kind of took the load in 2018. The Autumn Storms was there and performing, and she's always going to compete, does Autumn, but just wasn't at her best, not at, her, that All-American season. But the addition of Jenna, so you've got Mary, who's that strikeout pitcher, the rise ball pitcher. She'll bring in the changeup, and she doesn't throw super hard. She's mid to low to mid 60s at best. And then Storms is upper 60s, and she'll throw the down ball. So very different looks. Both of them will throw east and west, but Jenna Bloom, she's had an incredible performance on Sundays in the SEC, which has given those two pitchers a lot of rest. She's shut down great teams, great offenses. And I don't anticipate that Jenna Bloom's going to go a full 7 this weekend against Alabama, but I do see her coming in that relief role. And if she's in the starting role, maybe getting at least 1 time through the lineup, if not 2, depending on how she's performing and what those pitches look like, pinpointing, and what the strike zone is. But that staff, you've got those 3 who are a great complement to each other with pitches, with demeanor. Mary Half is very calm in the circle. And if you know Autumn Storms and you've watched her throughout her career, she has a lot more energy, but she's calmed down a little bit in the circle too. She's, coming off of that back injury, finding her stride in the last couple of weeks. And on Saturday, I think was their 3rd game of the series against Auburn. That's the best I've seen her all season. So she's finally a little bit more confident in the circle and really getting back to the All-American Storms that we know.
That's dynamic. And obviously the big matchup with Alabama. What's your thoughts on this series? I know you've talked to both coaching staffs as you prepare for your broadcast this weekend on SEC Network Plus. What's your thoughts? Because Alabama was the preseason favorite, and they're having a great year. But I feel like all eyes are, people really want us. A lot of people are going to see Arkansas here, and they're like, well, this is for real. This is this showdown here. What's your thoughts here as you get closer to this first pitch with this matchup? What stands out to you?
Number 1, Arkansas is the real deal. Obviously, they're 12-0 in the SEC. And I know the argument is, well, they haven't played the Floridas, they haven't played the Alabamas, they haven't played the Georgias, or, they're not at LSU until the first week in May. But how difficult is it to sweep an SEC team, and how difficult is it to sweep an SEC team 4 times? 2 at home and 2 on the road. That's extremely difficult to do. And they have not done it in run roll fashion all the time. They've had really close games. They've competed late, and they've come back from deficits. So Arkansas is the real deal. Their batting average is one of the lowest in the SEC, but they put runs up, and they do it in a way that's timely. They have not faced an Alabama, though. They've not faced a team that is similar to Alabama. Alabama's first in the SEC in batting average, first in runs scored. They literally scored 33 runs against Texas A&M this last weekend. They are going to run. They are going to put pressure on the defense. They're going to strike you out. And Arkansas does have a lot of strikeouts. So there's going to be, Montana Fouts in the circle. You got Lexi Kilfoyle in the circle. They're going to strike these hitters out. They don't walk a lot of people. They're obviously third in wins in the SEC, but both of these programs are extremely confident in their play and what they do and their styles, which are very contrasting and very different. Arkansas, the long ball and the big hits and the big innings. And you've got Alabama, who's going to string a lot of hits. They're kind of the old school softball of the short game. They're going to bunt to move you over. They're going to play with that defense. And they're going to put a lot of pressure, Alabama, on the Arkansas defense and try to get on that way. We saw that a lot with A&M. A&M kind of booted some balls around and Alabama just completely took advantage. So if you want, we're going to go early with this. Prediction-wise, there's not going to be a sweep. No way that Alabama or Arkansas is going to get swept. I know. You are surprised that I'm going this early with it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So they're going to be close and tight games. Braxton Burnside and Bailey Hemphill are going to be walked a lot. Both of these coaches are not afraid to put them on base, and that's the way that it should be. I mean, these players are co-SEC Players of the Week for the second time in the same week, and they can do damage with one swing of the bat. I think Arkansas is going to take the series 3-2, or they're going to go 2-1. I don't know which games they're going to take, but I think Arkansas is going to take the series.
That'd be pretty tight. And, do you believe – I think the SEC title right now race comes down to Arkansas, Alabama, and Florida. Do you agree with that?
Yes, 100% agree with that. And I wish that Arkansas and Florida were playing each other. And so SEC tournament, that's going to be a really fun breakdown if we can get those two matched up. If you ask me, and I know we're not talking about the Florida-Arkansas matchup at all, but Florida and Arkansas going at the very beginning of the season, I think Arkansas has a pretty good chance. But the way that Florida is hitting right now, wow. I mean, absolutely wow. They have met their stride. And these two teams, Alabama and Arkansas, are still trying to figure it out too. Alabama's trying to figure it out defensively. They've booted the ball a lot. They've got a lot of errors in the SEC, 17 in the SEC. 36 total on the season, and nearly half of those are just in SEC play. So that's definitely something to look at, especially with the hard hitters of Arkansas. But Arkansas is still shifting around their lineup. They're finally getting Hannah Gamble back for the first time in SEC play. Hannah McEwen is, there at the beginning of the lineup. She's struggled in terms of comparison to the last couple of years in the SEC. Kayla Green has really struggled in the SEC, but she went off for 2 home runs yesterday. So I think if you've got Arkansas at its best, which they're finally getting back to that full lineup, and Alabama not making those defensive mistakes, this is going to be a 1-run ball game.
Should be a thriller. And what is the atmosphere like over there at Arkansas? Obviously, the men's basketball team just had a great run to the Elite Eight. For the tournament with Coach Musselman. Baseball's doing great. They've got their own big series in Oxford against Ole Miss, right? Top 5 baseball series. So it's a good time to be an Arkansas sports fan. What has that been like there? And is softball getting its due? Because we've had you on before. We've talked about it. We've had Coach Deifel on. She built this program really from the bottom up. When she took over this program, these were at the bottom of the SEC. Obviously, the facilities have helped since then, but she's risen this program here to the top. The fans have started to come around as well with that, right?
Yeah, fans have definitely started to come around with COVID and everything. It's really hard for people to get in the stadium, but I mean, their games are sold out. Their games are being sold on StubHub for $100 a ticket. This has never happened. These games used to be free. I mean, it was free to get into Arkansas softball. And I think once you put a money value to it, once you give women's athletics and Arkansas softball and just softball in general more exposure, obviously TV has been great. When you give them more exposure within the community of, hey, we're putting a price to this because these kids are worth watching. And that has really changed. And Arkansas softball, the rec leagues and all the travel ball around here, there's a ton of kids that play this game and they love to watch these kids play. They love to watch them on TV. And I know it's the same, it's the same for Alabama too. Gosh, their fan base. I don't think any fan base will ever compare to Alabama softball, but Arkansas is getting there, and that's something that Courtney Daffel knows is really important for her. And she, a couple years ago, referred to this place as a gold mine. I mean, how do you come into the SEC with these facilities and nobody is really looking to come here? Nobody is really taking Arkansas seriously. And look what she's done. She's kind of snuck up on people. And she's done that through getting incredible transfers, right? You've got Danielle Gibson from ASU. You've got Braxton Burnside that's coming in. Lauren Graves came in from Maryland. And some kids that just fly under the radar in general in the recruiting process. They find a home at Arkansas. They want to play in the SEC, and they may not get the same opportunities as going to Florida and Georgia and your Alabamas, but look at them competing and look at the numbers that they've put up in Fayetteville. It's incredible to see.
And the ultimate compliment is, the Cal job was open. That's her alma mater. She won a national title there. And yet people are like, yeah, no, she ain't going there. She's got the better, job at Arkansas, which speaks volumes. I don't think they would have said that, say, 5-10 years ago, but that's how she's risen this program, right?
And that first year that she was here, she had one SEC win. And how do you describe that? And how do you have an administration that completely believes in your ability to rebuild a program and turn a program like that around? And I think this administration has done that. And I know Brett Dolan, who's on the call with me on Friday and Sunday, asked her a couple weeks ago too of, hey, talk to us about the support from other coaches. And Sam Pittman and Nate Musselman are all behind Arkansas softball. And they've gotten football fans and basketball fans and gymnastics fans to now take a look at softball. And it's an incredible sport. It's a contagious sport. And I don't know how anybody who watches it doesn't want to continue to watch it and keep up with it. And it's a little bit easier to latch on to being a fan when you're putting up 60 home runs in a season and you've got Braxton Burnside who's hitting 20, and now they're all over the news. So and I know it's the same for Alabama too. I mean, they've been in the top 5 consistently.
Yeah.
And they're the reigning SEC champs, and what Pat Murphy has done with that program from the very beginning. I mean, he's been there 25 years, 23 at the helm at the head coaching spot. He has built a culture that is inexplainable. Both of his assistants played for him. You don't see that a lot. You don't see a coach that can bring a couple of their best players back and still have that conversation, still have that relationship of that coach player. And now I'm a coach and you're my colleague and we're equals. And that has been really cool to watch, and how that program has progressed and stayed so consistent over the last 15, 20 years. I mean, Good God.
Yeah, no, you're right. What he's done is amazing, and it's going to be tremendous seeing this weekend. Of course, we're speaking with Dr. Megan Turk, who'll be doing color commentary alongside Brett Dolan on SEC Network Plus this weekend, Friday and Sunday, for the Alabama-Arkansas series. The Saturday game will be on ESPN2. What year? How many years you've done Arkansas games? What year is this for you?
Since 2016, so this will be technically my 5th if we're still counting last year.
All right, so you've brought the success. You should deserve credit for that now, right?
Yeah, it's totally me.
What has this season been like? Because we've had protocols and things like that. So from a broadcast standpoint, there's been some adjustments, I'm sure, from your end that you've had to adjust to, right?
Yeah, well, with everything being shifted too, with gymnastics and soccer and volleyball now playing in the spring, the broadcast has been limited. There was a weekend that softball wasn't on at all. And I think it was neither their first or second weekend. Of course, baseball was number 1 at the time, but it's when you don't have those resources and it's not accessible for people to watch this program, you don't really get to see them at the beginning of the season. And it's kind of hard to gauge that against your Floridas and your Alabamas, because they have a lot more coverage on your ESPNs. And your main channels and your linear channels. But at COVID protocols, getting into the stadium was a little bit more difficult, of course, but Brett and I are still in booth. We're not doing the home kits like all the ESPN analysts are.
Right.
which I mean, I like. I like being there and being able to see things that the camera isn't showing, and then being able to talk
Sure.
about that. I don't know, Eric, if you've done a lot of remote stuff.
No.
It's hard.
Yeah, no, I've done remotes in the past where I'm fortunate right now that I have not had to do that. We've had it set up where I have a plexiglass in my booth, and I've been fortunate. I've worked with Francesca Anea this year and Jamie Lowprice. I've done.
She's awesome. Both of them are awesome.
Yeah, and we've been fortunate in that, we have a plexiglass, we have distance, we have the windows open, stuff like that, all the protocols you would imagine. So it's been really well. And she's joked because at Florida, currently she's obstructed of seeing the field. So she actually has a better view at UCF than she does at Florida, but that's just the way. So she's actually when she's doing the Florida games on SEC Network Plus, she's got she's doing it from a monitor basically, and it is hard. It is hard because you can't see everything on a monitor. You're at the mercy of a camera, and you don't know where the camera's going, and so it's harder to get a feel for things. So I envy that for those that have done it remote. I've done it in the past for NPF games. So it has been unique from that standpoint. Plus the atmosphere is different because, like you said, it's not your normal packed houses or things like that. So it kind of messes with you, right? Because sometimes it's quiet, so you don't know. Like, do you talk more? Do you not talk more? So that's also, I don't know if you guys have had that issue as well, where you've had to adjust as far as, man, it's just quieter than normal. So should we talk more or not? Right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Being an analyst when Arkansas was going one in the SEC, one win. There weren't a ton of people in the stands. Yeah. And so I was kind of used to that. But now, last year it was packed. The year before it was packed in 2019. And they've started to open up a little bit more. We've got a huge berm in the outfield that people can stay in their little, pods that are spray painted on the on the grass and everything. But you get to hear the teams a lot more. And I was never a super cheerer. I'm not very vocal in that way. I didn't really enjoy that. But hearing the energy come from the dugouts is neat. And I think for these teams, with the lack of fan base of what they could have this season, your Alabamas and your Arkansas are now feeding off of the energy of each other. And I think that's actually going to make our game a little bit more interesting because they're not feeding off of fans. They're feeding off of at bats, you're feeding off of quality at bats, of good pitches, of good plays. And I think you're seeing these players take a little bit more seriously what they're capable of, and that they don't need to rely on that external energy, that they can produce it themselves and they can produce it internally as a team, from coaching staff all the way down to graduate managers and all of that. There's always those energetic sources, individual people or collectives that can generate that same sort of feeling as a fan base might without having to look into the stands and find that.
As a broadcaster, how do you feel you're at now or compared to, say, like 2018 and set in 19? Do you feel different?
My personal progress?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Night and day. Before we started recording, Eric and I were talking about just doing podcasts and having me on more and all of that. And there's an insecurity that always happens at the beginning of the career. And I did Baylor Vision. I was doing their radio games and their online broadcasts. And I've done the D3 national championships since 2013. But there's just a different thing about SEC Network. There's more to it. You can take more control and ask for camera angles and ask for replays, and you just don't get that. So there's a lot more of the storytelling that happens that I didn't realize. I'm a psychology major. I don't do any broadcasting, anything for education wise. So this has kind of been a trial and error and learn as I go. And I've gotten a lot of help from a lot of people along the way, but I think I'm more willing to voice opinion more so this year than any other year, and just allow myself to be a little bit more free in the booth. And I'm funny. I think I'm hilarious. And so I'm going to bring that humor a little bit more in. Yeah. And I find that loose and that just free feeling in the booth. I almost said in the box. And the booth has helped me grow as an analyst too.
Yeah, I've sensed that. And I feel how much of that too is, you've gotten used to working with Brett. right? There's got to be, right?
But Brett's all over the place. I mean, he does, regionals, men's basketball, women's basketball, gymnastics, volleyball. So I work with, Josh Haley. I worked with Dorian Kraft. We had the first female Razorback Sport Network crew I think it was last month that we worked together. So I've worked with a lot of different play-by-play, which has been cool because I learn more about myself and about what kinds of questions to ask and what to talk about and what to look for by working with all these other people. So that has been awesome. It's nice to get in a groove for sure.
No, but you're right. You're right. Working with different people sometimes kind of gives you a chance to adapt to and kind of do different stuff instead of the, say, because I've had two analysts, so they're different styles. So you adapt to that as a play-by-play person. So that's always kind of been fun and creative. Plus, I'm sure it's the same with you. Because of the platform that we're in, we have more access to the teams for both teams. Not necessarily this year, but although Zoom has helped, obviously, here's like we're doing right now. But it's helped from an access standpoint where I just, I talk to the opponents to get kind of their feed on things. Because I've always believed in the philosophy, like, if I know both teams inside out, that makes the broadcast easy because I got plenty of stuff to talk about. Instead, if you're focusing on one team, and I think too many, and I won't mention names, but too many broadcasters out there of certain schools just focus on their own team, but they don't realize the sport has grown so much that, like, your broadcast this weekend, it's not just going to be watched by Arkansas fans. It's not just going to be watched by Alabama fans, but it's going to be watched by softball fans. So I know that you feel like, hey, I got to tell the Arkansas side of the story because there's people that are watching Arkansas that haven't watched them all year. But at the same time, I also know there's Alabama fans that are tuning in. There are SEC fans that are tuning in. So it's a national broadcast. And I think that's kind of, as a result, and I think all the schools have done a good job of this, they realize, hey, let's give them access because they're going to help our broadcast and that'll help us. Whereas I feel like, back when you were doing the games at Baylor, if you try to reach out to another school, they were like, yeah, whatever. Right.
Yeah. And Eric, I'll be honest with you, when I was working at Baylor, I was the worst. I mean, I would show up 15 minutes before the game and just get on air and only talk about Baylor. Right. I didn't know any better. Right. You coming into this and I'm a fifth year, I'm finishing my degree, and it's just kind of okay, I was good at interviewing, let's do it type of situation. But absolutely, that access to the other coaches, the conversations, and we talk to every single opposing coach before every single broadcast, whether it's a pass through and not a lot of graphics on there, or if it's a linear game, or if it's just on, SEC Plus, we do that every single time, which has opened my eyes as a broadcaster too, of now I get to talk to some of the best minds in the country. I mean, I'm talking to SEC coaches every other weekend when they're at home, and I'm learning a lot about the game. I'm learning a lot about their teams, obviously, what questions to ask, but I'm also I get access to these incredible athletes who are doing amazing things for our sport, growing it, but also the athleticism and the display of athleticism. I'm so impressed with about how we just continue to better our sport and fine tune that craft that we just didn't have access to when I was playing. We didn't have access to when Jenny Dalton Hill, who's on the Saturday call, was playing in the 90s. It just wasn't a thing. And seeing that and seeing the mental game grow and hearing all of these coaches talk about it, and how many of these coaches have degrees in sports psychology and they're implementing into our game. You just can't ask for any more about the growth and the exposure of softball, and collegiate softball especially.
I agree 100% with that. Now, we can't let you go without talking about your other side, because you got too many hats you wear.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, I think, the last time we had you on a little bit, because this was at the beginning process. But here you are. You also do your own instructing at the warehouse. Tell the audience how that's going and where about and how it's been going and where people can find information.
Yeah, so the warehouse is a softball training facility in Northwest Arkansas. It's actually in Fayetteville, about a mile away from Bogle Park, where the Arkansas Razorbacks play. So that's pretty cool. But I opened it in February 2020. Good timing. Had to shut down a month in. But this community is just yearning for softball instruction, and not just instruction in general, but softball specific instruction. We have a lot of baseball facilities that also do softball lessons, but This place is, you've got baskets of softballs in the cages and not baskets of baseballs. And these kids come in and they see that, and they see these instructors, and I've got a bunch of them that are playing right now, and they're coming in and they're like, I saw you on ESPN. I saw you on the news. I saw you hit a home run the other day. And then they get to see them coming out after practice and being 100% fully themselves. And this younger generation is making human these kids that are on ESPN. And it's also making that dream a little bit more realistic to play college softball, whether it's NAIA, JUCO, D1, D2, D3, whatever they want to play. And seeing that grow and trying to grow the sport around here, I take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in the physical development, obviously, but the mental, the emotional development too, the character development. And we were on the call with Coach Murphy just actually about an hour or so ago. I was kind of asking him about the conversations that happen between the coaching staff and his staff too. And he said, we have a classroom built in our clubhouse, and each of them has a desk. They all have a notebook that they bring in there, and we watch film and we talk and we look at motivational videos and all of that. And ironically, I said, well, I just built this facility, and I personally, with my own hands, built a classroom in this facility too, because I wanted the same thing. We've got whiteboards. They've got a chance to do their homework. We've got Wi-Fi. There are instructors when we want to do mental training. We take them into the classroom and we break stuff down, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And that's my full time right now.
I'm curious if the instructing has also helped the broadcast standpoint, because especially when you do replays and things, and I've worked with Francesca and I've noticed this working with her up close. She is phenomenal in seeing things on replay, even seeing things live that she can describe that a lot of people can't, because if you've played, and just the mechanics and the adjustments you see at the box or in the pitching circle, whatever. I'm wondering if your instructing has helped you in the broadcast, especially in replays and stuff, because you're like, the mechanics. You're used to now focusing on certain things that you're looking for from a mechanical standpoint.
Without a doubt, that the teaching aspect of it has forced me to be a better learner. And Eric, I spent almost 10 years in higher education. I have, a PhD, and I spent a lot of time learning, but not in this capacity, not in that applying that knowledge into a physical space. And I also surround myself with some incredible coaches and really talented and really intelligent coaches who continuously ask questions, and we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. And I'll just call her out, but Ali Manzo is one of the best coaches that we have. And she's also on the Razorbacks, and she has had an incredible season. And she's been such a role player for Arkansas through her career. And this year she's fought her way into the lineup, and not in we don't have anybody else to put in there, but they have 13 hitters that are more than capable of getting in the lineup. And Manzo has solidified that spot. She has come up in big moments. She's their energy bus. She is so good at breaking down swings and talking about it. And her and I bounce ideas off each other all the time. Hey, I've got a kid that's doing this. Can you work me through it? Can you help me, figure out what to do, what drills, and what do I need to talk to her about mentally? And that's been awesome to have that access in those conversations. And yeah, you're absolutely right with Francesca and Nea. I played against her, and she's annoyingly good, like please stop hitting it over the fence. That would be great. But when you have analysts that play the game, that know the game, fresh off of it, they don't know how to break that down. But the more that you see it, the more that you see the replays, the more that you break it down in a place that's not just in the booth, the more you get it. And I've seen her grow too as an analyst. You talk about, my growth over the last couple of years. Francesca Anea is phenomenal in the booth. I love listening to her.
Yeah, and I've always enjoyed her work. Obviously, I see her up close in Florida, but even working with her now, like we just did the Florida game, and she was just so on top of things, and like watching it back, like there's just things she sees that I can't believe people see. Like there was a play where Jada Cody's at the plate, bottom of the 7th. They're fouling pitches off, and she's telling you, basically foreshadowing. She's like Tony Romo. She's basically saying right now she's getting too much of the she's getting too much of the barrel of the bat on these foul pitches from Hightower. They better fit. Hightower's in danger of giving one up here, and she did. She gave up a double right after that. Like, she just sees things that is remarkable. I've really enjoyed like that Florida UCF game is probably one of my favorite broadcasts. First of all, it was an exciting game. But first of all, her elements that she brings to a broadcast added to it. Like, I'll never forget that broadcast. And so, and it was funny because, some people were like, well, she's a Gator. You're going to let her do this broadcast, UCF Florida. But it was actually like, yeah, I'm going to let her because it's like the perfect person to do it. Because first of all, she doesn't get like emotional about the game. She just likes calling what's going on. And you're the same way. You don't get caught up in who's winning or whatever. You're caught up in the game. And I think people don't realize that from a broadcast standpoint is the game is going to dictate where the broadcast goes. And what the conversation takes place or whatever. So
we work really hard for it not to be one-sided because I used to work for the team. I volunteered with them for 2 years and I know that about myself. And I know that, I know Arkansas really well. And I continuously try to ask more questions to see what else is missing out of my knowledge. But these other teams 100% deserve to have that same coverage, and that's the only way that we're going to grow the game from a media standpoint in a positive direction about not just covering the Power Fives, but giving attention to these other programs that wouldn't otherwise have them and elevate their recruiting process too. And talk about their staffs and what they do well and their programs and their schools to get more people interested in those programs too. That I think is way more important than being able to break down a swing and all of that, but tell the bigger picture of softball on a collegiate level in general.
I agree. We can spend hours on this, but I know you got to get ready. You have a life. So
I don't.
You got to have a pretty busy life. Now, I again, tell the people about the Warehouse. It's the warehousesoftball.com where they can find out more information, correct?
Yes, it is. It is. And, we're on the Twitter. I'm not great at the Twitter. I think it's the Warehouse SB or something like that, or the Warehouse NWA. I should probably know that. But yeah, we do all sorts of instruction. And, it's been great and I love it. But this series this weekend, Eric, I think is going to be probably one of the best series that you're going to see other than the Florida-Alabama series.
Yeah. No,
really.
A lot of people are looking forward to this.
The top 10 matchup. And let me just talk about Alabama because I don't think we've given them enough time on this. This team is so good offensively. You talk about the Bailey Hemphills. She's just written the career book, the record book at Alabama. And just like Hannah McEwen, one of the best eyes in the country and doesn't press. And I think that's the really cool thing about watching Bailey Hemphill and over her career is that she's not trying to win the game in one swing. She's trying to get her best at bat and then trust the people behind her. That confidence for both of these programs, 1 through 9 throughout the lineup, allows the next hitter to also have that confidence. So you saw early in Arkansas's season of, pitching around Danielle Gibson, trying to pitch around Burnside and all of that, and how the players behind them, the Lenny Malkins and the Ali Monzos were coming in and getting hits. It's the same thing for Alabama. They are producing in situations that you wouldn't expect them to. They're putting pressure consistently on the defense. They have 3 really good left-handed slappers and speedsters who can also hit and who are incredible at bunting, that are before Bailey Hemphill that are getting on, which are forcing that RBI total for Bailey Hemphill to increase. And I'll be honest with you, Kaylee Tao, who's been hitting behind Hemphill for the majority of the season, she's struggled throughout the SEC, but she had a grand slam in the last game. And sometimes it just takes one to rebuild that confidence. Sometimes it just takes one. Claire Jenkins, same thing. She went 3 for 4 in that first game, had a grand slam, 6 RBI. Oh, by the way, she only has 7 RBI in the SEC, and it all came in one game. against A&M. So this team putting up 33 runs against a good A&M team, completely outmatched, in my opinion. Alabama is just talented. They are better than A&M is right now because of the maturity. They brought all 7 of their seniors back. I mean, how can you ask for anything, anything better than that? So Alabama is a force to be reckoned with. This is going to wise. You've got half in Storms who are their 1-2 punch. Half the rise ball, Storms the low ball. It's kind of looking at the same with Alabama's pitching. You got Lexi Kilfoyle, who throws really hard. She's got that drop ball. She's at the upper 60s, kind of like Storms is. And Montana Fouts is going to be your strikeout pitcher coming up in the zone. But both of those are going to have to be careful against a big hitting Arkansas team. Storms in half, other than Hemphill, you do have some other players that have those home run numbers, but they're not going to be as worried about the long ball from Alabama. They're going to be worried about the short game. Yeah. And so if Alabama can produce on the short game, and KB Sides and Alexis Mack, and oh, by the way, Alyssa Brown, who does not get enough credit in the SEC and that 9-hole spot, she's been incredible over the course of the league. If those 3 can continue to get on and continue to put that pressure on that defense, Arkansas might find itself on its heels defensively, especially with the third baseman freshman, Hannah Gamble. I think you're going to see Alabama really try to expose those corners with Danielle Gibson not being able to move as well with her knee injuries, and then Hannah Gamble over at third base. I'm really excited about seeing more short game. As a third baseman, I love it. Please bring the slappers back. Amen. I love the home runs, but don't miss out on the short game. And I think Alabama really brings that in a completely different way than Arkansas has seen all season.
Should be so many fascinating storylines too. Kilfoyle, you mentioned, and Mary Half both had the same personal pitching coach in Casey Clark Zerby, who I know very well in Florida. So that's another interesting dynamic, and I can't even imagine the pitching matchups that we could have this weekend. It's going to be exciting. Arkansas and Alabama, and you get the best chair here. You and Brett Dolan will be calling it. I'm going to be jealous of Brett because he's working with you on that. SEC Network Plus, Friday and Sunday. Hey, this has been fun. We'll definitely bring you back sooner than a year. In fact, we'll bring you back later this year. So
yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to be a part of this and be a part of that Arkansas-Alabama series. Again, I do think Arkansas is going to take it 2-1, but I think that it's going to be a really hard-fought series, and the team that makes the adjustments in the box quicker is going to be the team that takes the victories.
Should be a thriller. Encourage everybody to check it out. SEC Network Plus, Friday and Sunday. Megan Turk, Brett Dolan. They'll be good. They're awesome in the broadcast. Megan, this has been fun. We will do this again this year. We're going to do it again this year. We'll figure it out around your schedule. My other request, by the way, on your warehouse website, you should have, you've got that cool photo of you as a Baylor player with the sunglasses. You need to add a photo of you as a broadcaster.
Okay. I'll work on it. I'll get with my media person, a.k.a. me.
There you
we'll
go.
see if we can do it.
It's not urgent, but, hey, you're just shows off all the multitasking that your career there. It's pretty good, but awesome.
Appreciate you, Eric.
Always enjoy talking to you. We'll talk soon, bud.
All right. Sounds good.